Hi, this is Dave Hawes from Powder Software. In this video, I want to spend just a few minutes talking about the fundamental premise behind the calculation engine that sits inside Chartnado. Now, I think it's fair to say that the vast majority of time that BI professionals and end users spend is on calculations. All of the BI tools in the world provide the ability to do calculations. Some of them force the calculations onto the database. Some of them have calculation engines built in. But the vast majority of them do calculations based on some sort of domain-specific language where you have to type calculations into an editor. And it's very difficult to view the results of the calculations when you're designing a report. Chartnado takes a fundamentally different approach. Our calculation engine is built entirely graphically. We provide an enormous number of functions that you can drag and combine and play with on the canvas in our function builder so that you can build up your calculations slowly and visualize the output of each stage of the calculation so that it becomes much easier to reason about what it is that you're trying to do and where stages might not be working according to what you expect. So what we're going to do is go over this process with a simple example to give you an idea of what it is that I'm trying to discuss here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out with demo data. Now, Chartnado provides some demo data that you can use. You don't have to install anything on your machine, and this comes from a website that we host. So this is basic data. It's 1,000 rows, and it's some simple sales data that originally came out of the Northwind example from Microsoft. Now what we're going to do is, let's say we've got this data and we want to find sales amounts based on the country. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to group by the country. So we're going to say, okay, from the column in the original data, we're going to specify from the data column country. Now what that's going to do is it's going to go look at the source table and it's going to group by all of the same rows that have country, and for all of the same rows that have the same country, it's going to go out and give you another data table. So for example, for Australia, we have the data table that just contains the Australia rows. For Canada, we have a data table that contains just the Canada rows. So that's fairly straightforward. Now what we want to do is we want to get a list of all of the sales for each of the countries. So we're going to say add a calculated column. We'll drag a calculated column node on. And then what's going to happen is we're going to say, okay, what do we want to name the new column? We'll call this sales. And then what's going to happen is for each row in this data table, so one for Australia, one for Canada, one for France, etc., we're going to get access to every other column in this row from which we can do calculations. So what we'll say is, okay, we'll go into the calculation and we'll look at the current data row from the column. Now you remember that there were two rows in the original column, the key, which was the name of the country, and the data table. So we'll select the data table because that's where our data is going to come from. So we'll go back out. Now we've got the current data row, and you'll notice that because we're working with the first row here, the country was Australia. So now what we want to do is we want to say, okay, I want to take all of these rows, again, just for Australia, and we want to sum up the line total. So we're going to say add a summary, drag a summary on. The summary type will be sum, and again, we're doing this on a row by row basis. So from the column, we're going to say we want to add up line total. So we'll go back to our function builder. Now, what this says is for all of the rows in Australia from that data table, the sum total of everything in the line total column was 37,020. If we go back, and now we can look at the stages of our calculation. So we started out with the demo data. We then took the demo data and we grouped it by country. Then for each of the rows, we took the data table and we summarized the line total column. So you can see what we've done here. Now, let's say, for example, what we want to do is we want to change this so that we only want to take the first top 3 rows. Now, in order to take the top 3, we actually have to order this. So we'll put on an order by, drag an order by on, and an order by works on a table. So what we're going to do is, which column do you want to order by? Because there's 3 columns. Technically, we want to order by the sales column. So we'll add a new column that we want to order by. The column that we want to give them, or the column that we want to use is sales. So we'll check that one. And then you'll notice out of the gate, we get ascending, but that's not quite what we want. So let's go in and say the direction will be descending. And now you can see that our order by says that by far and away the biggest chunk of this whole thing is sales to the United States, and then Canada, and then the United Kingdom. Now let's say, for purposes of argument, I want to take the first 3. I want to take the top 3. So I'm going to say take, and then we'll drag a take on. Now you'll notice that take requires a data table from which to gather the rows and how many you want to take. So we'll drag on a number. So we'll drag number over here. And so the order by produces a table. So that's the table we want to take from. And then the quantity will take the first, 3 for something to do. And there you get the top 3 sales grouped by country. This formula builder concept and the idea of building all of these graphically is everywhere in the software. Pretty much everything can be done using this. You can use this as sources of data for widgets. This concept is also done for conditional formatting, the generation of legends. It's everywhere. So once you understand the basic concepts of taking a table, grouping up that table, adding calculated columns, and performing additional functions where you can see what's happening at every stage of the operation, then you've gone a long way to understanding how it is that Chartnado works and what it brings to the table. So hopefully that's enough of an overview to get you started and have fun playing with Chartnado. Thanks.